Now we have to learn about AWS Lambda. This is one of the fastest service and top adopted service in cloud. It is a subset of your EC2 machine. When I'm saying it's a subset of EC2 machine, that means it allow you to run your application or small processing in cloud. Okay, it provide you the feature called RAM and CPU. And how it is different from EC2. It is again a subset of the EC2 basically. So first we have to understand how the cloud has evolved, then Lambda, traditional server and serverless application, and pricing and all thing. So you have learned about data centers, infra as a service, platform as a service, and serverless. This is how the your cloud technology or IT has developed. Previously, everything has to be brought to the servers, physical server. We have to buy everything. Then cloud has come in picture where the hardwares are provided to you as on rent. That's the infra as a service. Then platform as a service where apart from infra you have already applications are created for you. You just have to use them, just like your RDS machine. You don't have to do anything, everything is pre-configured. Okay, you just have to create the database. In couple of click the database is created, application is created for you. That's a platform as a service. Now the industry is moving to serverless, where everything will be without any server. Now what is mean by serverless? So this is the evolution of your industry: data center, infra as a service, platform as a service, container, and serverless. So before going to Lambda, understand how right now you are using the memory and CPU. If I talk about memory and CPU, the first thing will come into your mind will be EC2 machine, right? EC2 machine provide you the computing capability, which has CPU, it has RAM, it has storage, it has some networking like VPC. We have attached VPC networking some component. All these things are there in EC2 machine, right? But what is the minimum capacity that EC2 machine will be given to us? It is a 500 MB RAM, right? What is the minimum RAM you will get? It is a 500 MB RAM. What is the minimum CPU? It is a 1 CPU. What is the minimum storage? Generally it is 8 GB. And how much time or how much amount of time, how the pricing of EC2 machine is given? It is hourly basis, right? If I want to run a small job, just like I want to run a Python code. Let's say you have a piece of code, you have a very simple piece of code I want to test. It's a simple Python code. To run that code, you have to require a computer, you want to require some machine. Agree? To run a simple code, you require a machine. To run a machine, you will go to you will create an EC2 machine, and you will upload your code and run there. Right? But my code runs for a smaller period of time. It doesn't run for a very long period of time. It takes only 5 minutes to execute my code, or 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes. My piece of code is not taking more than 5 minutes. Okay, so this, let's say this is my code. This is my code, and I would just want to run this few lines of code. Okay, it takes hardly 1 to 5 minutes to run this code. It takes hardly 1 to 5 minutes to run this code. For that, should I create an EC2 machine? If I'm creating EC2 machine and I'm wasting most of the RAM and CPU, because this code only required, let's say, 50 MB of memory. That's it. So for that, why should I run a EC2 machine for 1 hour and pay a huge amount of money? There should be some alternative. I don't want, and second, I don't want to manage the machine as well. So that's where Lambda come in picture. Lambda comes in the picture. Again, it's a small part of EC2. Okay, it is a subset of EC2 where you just have to submit the code to AWS. Okay, let's say this is your company, this is your AWS account. Okay, you are the user and this is your piece of code. So that you have one option where you can go to AWS account, create EC2 machine and upload this code to EC2 machine, or you can just create a Lambda. Here, creating a Lambda, you will what you will do, you will upload the code to Lambda, and you don't know where AWS is going to run this code. You are not bothered about how much memory or CPU this code will require. Okay, you just want the output of the code, just like this is my code. I'm just running this code. Runs on how much memory, how much data. You are not bothered about that. You just want the output of this data. Okay, so here the file is created. This is the output. You're just looking for the output. That's it. You're not bothered about how on which machine this code is run, how much data this code has taken. Okay, you just know that this code will take couple of seconds to minutes to execute, and it can be executed with a small amount of RAM. So for that purpose, why should I create a EC2 machine? So you submit your code to AWS. AWS will find the resources for you. It will find the RAM and CPU for you. It will execute this code and it will return the output. And you will charge for that particular number of seconds and the memory. That's it. That's where a Lambda comes in picture. You don't have to manage the server. You don't have to manage the machine. You don't have to manage anything. Everything is managed by Amazon. That's the beauty of Lambda. So AWS Lambda is a computing service where you can upload your code and create Lambda functions. The Lambda take care of providing and managing the servers that you use to run the code. So Lambda will manage the infra. You don't have to worry where your code is running. It's just like you submit your money to the bank and you don't have to worry about where the bank is keeping the money. You just worried about that your data, your money is secure. That's it. You're not bothered about how your money is kept, in which vault is kept. You just have given money to the bank and it should reflect in your banking statement. That's it. So similar is Lambda, where you are not worried about anything. You just worry about the output of the code. Okay. So you don't have to worry about operating system, patching, scaling, etc. Nothing. Lambda is the extract layer, ultimate extraction layer. Okay. Data center, hardware, assembly code, high level language, operating system, you don't have to worry about any of these things. You just have to write the code and submit to AWS. Okay, how Lambda works? As an event driven computing service where Lambda run your code in response to the event. So you trigger something, you click on submit button and you click on the run button. So I will show you how Lambda works in the real world. So this is your Lambda. Okay, just go to any of the Lambda. My first, okay, I will show you how you can create a Lambda. Create a Lambda. Create Lambda. Create from scratch. Give a name. Okay, just a second. Okay, before creating a Lambda, you need to create an IAM role for the Lambda. Okay, you can create a role from here as well. Okay, or you can create from your custom role. So I'm giving my first Lambda. I will write in Python. I will write the code in Python, and you need to create a role. Okay, you can create a role. Okay, create a role with the basic Lambda permission. That's it. Advanced settings, leave as it is. So this is a few clicks, your Lambda will be created. Give a name, select the language, give the role, and just create the Lambda. That's it. Your Lambda is created. So there is no charge in creating the Lambda. There is no charge in creating the Lambda. You can create hundreds of Lambdas. You will be only charged for the code which you have created when it will be executed. So this is your Lambda. Now here you can type the code. So this is in Python language. If you know the Python, it will be easy for you to understand. I'm just printing hello. We are learning Lambda. AWS Lambda function. Okay, here we are learning AWS Lambda. That's it. This is my piece of code. You can have a very long code. You can do anything with the Lambda. If you know Python, how Python is doing, I just want to run this code. So just save it. So Amazon has provided the GUI that you can write the code here. Now I will be not getting charged. There will be no charge for creating the Lambda or writing the code here. Now if you trigger the Lambda, how you can trigger? Just give input. This is the input to my Lambda. Okay, give a name, what type of input. This is a test input. This is the input to my Lambda. Okay, and just save. So I have saved the input. This is the input and just test. Now you can see a Lambda is triggered for me and it has created the output hello. Okay, and it has written hello, we are learning AWS Lambda. This is the output. So it ran for 1 millisecond. The memory it has taken is 36 MB. That's it. I will be billed for 2 milliseconds. I don't know where this Lambda executed. What is the underlying hardware? What is the underlying OS? I don't know. Where Amazon executed this Lambda, I am not bothered about it. I am bothered about it is my output. This is my output. Okay. So I am printing again. Printing. This is my summation. So if you want to do some mathematical operation in Python, 10 plus 10. So you can see this is my summation, 20. Output is 20. So if you are doing some operation, if you want to doing some coding and you want to run it, you can run in Lambda. Okay. So it is an event driven. So event means right now I click on the test. That's an event. So if you trigger the Lambda, you start basically just like you trigger the EC2 machine. You start EC2 machine for Lambda. We call it trigger. Start the Lambda. Kick the Lambda. Okay, as the compute service to run your code in response to the request using API gateway or API SDKs. So there are so many things which you can trigger the Lambda. So even for S3, if you upload anything in S3, right, as soon as you upload a file in S3, S3 can be integrated with Lambda. So as soon as a put object is created, that means upload a file to S3, Amazon has given a function where you can trigger the Lambda, which will give the input of to the Lambda as bucket information and the file information. Let's say you have uploaded an image, so that image metadata will be passed to the Lambda, and in the Lambda you have written a code which will convert that image into a meme. Let's say let's party. You're adding some information. So it's a very simple application, and you can store the output to S3 again. Even Lambda can trigger another Lambdas. Lambda can trigger other AWS service. Lambda can interact with anything. So now you can have a question, sir. If there is a Lambda, why we have learned EC2 machine? Why we have learned EC2 machine? Why not we are using Lambda? So EC2 machine is, again, everything has to be managed by you. You have more control. You have underline. You can select the underlying hardware. You can select the underlying OS. You have a complete control on EC2. Here you don't have any control. First of all, second, in EC2 there is no end time, so you can run EC2 for 24/7. Okay, Amazon will be charging you for hourly basis, but EC2 machine will be running for 24/7, and you have a flexibility that you can get 0.5 GB of RAM till terabyte GB of RAM, right? But in Lambda will run only for 15 minutes. That means your code, your application, your output should be generated within 15 minutes. If your application doesn't complete in 15 minutes, the Lambda will be terminated. So it is used for doing the small task, not a big task. You cannot host a website in Lambda, because to host a website it required to run 24/7. Your Lambda will be running. If you trigger this, you can see the I will show you the configuration. Here is the configuration. Click on edit. You can see the set the memory. So maximum memory it is showing is 10 GB. When I started working with Lambda, the maximum memory was 500. In 2017, the maximum memory that Lambda was supporting was 500. Okay, and I will show you the maximum timeout. If I say, let's say, run for 60 minutes, no, your Lambda will work maximum for 15 minutes. That means your code should be completed within 15 minutes. When I started working on Lambda, the maximum time was 5 minutes. So your code should be completed, or the output should be generated within 5 minutes. Otherwise, AWS will kill the Lambda. Okay, and there is a limitation of storage as well. You can't store anything in Lambda. Initially, it was 500 MB. Yes, it was 500 MB. Now you can store up to 10 GB. So in EC2 machine, whatever the storage you have selected, you can store as much data as on that storage. But in Lambda, there is no storage. You can't attach EBS volume. You can't attach EFS. That is not possible in Lambda. So in Lambda, it has some drawbacks, that the runtime is 15 minutes. The storage, the memory is maximum 10 GB now. Okay, it is used for small task only. If you have to have a big request, you have to go with EC2 machine. So this is a traditional application where you have created a load balancer, right? You have created ELB, application load balancer. right? We have created load balancer. Load balancer were interacting with EC2 machine and giving a request. If you remember, we have created a website, and on top of that, we have enabled load balancer auto scaling, and the website was hosted on EC2 machine, and we were interacting that website using HTTP protocol. But the website was running 24/7. Okay, let's say you have, this is another example. Okay, this is a traditional architecture that you are running a load balancer. Behind the load balancer there is a EC2 machine. Okay, and EC2 machine is interacting with the database, and you are getting some response. This is a traditional infrastructure where your EC2 machine, load balancer and database are running for 24/7. But if you want to go with a serverless application, so API gateway we are going to cover just in 5 minutes. It is a replacement of load balancer. It will trigger the Lambda. Lambda can interact with your DynamoDB, which is again a serverless, and give a response within couple of seconds. Okay, all these things are serverless. So API gateway, it is a substitute of load balancer, which is again will work only for 30 seconds. The response should within 30 seconds. What is the load balancer? Load balancer, the request will wait for a couple of minutes. But API gateway is a substitute of load balancer, which is serverless. You pay you as per your use. It triggers the Lambda. Lambda will connect to the database. It will return back the response within 1 second or 2 seconds, and you will get the information back to the user. So if you have such requirement where you are completing your request within a seconds, just think about Lambdas. Otherwise, you have to go with the EC2 machine always. Always EC2 machine is there. So these are the languages which are supported by Lambda: Node.js, Java, Python, C#, and PowerShell. How the price of Lambda is there? So for 1 million requests, you are only getting charged as $0.2. That's the cheapest thing in cloud. That's the cheapest thing in the cloud, that you have to pay for so much Lambdas. You are just getting less than $1. So number of Lambdas you are triggering, that is how Amazon is going to bill you. Then duration is calculated, is the time your code is executed multiply the amount of memory it has utilized. Okay, so as I shown you in the console, so you will be billed for number of Lambdas as well as how much time it has taken to execute 2 seconds and how much memory it has utilized. So it has utilized 36 MB. So pricing is depending on the duration of Lambda as well as memory your Lambda is using. So as you can see, it is not using 1 GB, 2 GB of your RAM. So why should I use EC2 machine where I can complete this small task in Lambda? So if EC2 machine is taking let's say 10 rupees, Lambda is doing same task in 0.5 rupees. I'm not managing any server, I'm not managing anything. Everything is managed by Lambda. I'm not managing the OS, I'm not managing anything. Okay, so you will be charged like this 0.0001667 for every GB per second, approximately. Every GB of memory you are using per second. So why Lambda? No server, no system, no patching, no antivirus, continuous scaling, super cheap. You can trigger hundreds of Lambdas together, thousands of Lambda together. I have done that. Okay, I have 100 files. We are going to do some same project where we are going to provide hundreds of files to the Lambda, and Lambda will be triggering all the files individually. Okay, so Lambda scale out. So n number of Lambda can be created. Function are independent. It is serverless. One Lambda can trigger multiple Lambdas. Okay, you can create your application can be complex. You can use X-ray for inside of your Lambda. Okay, you can do things globally. There are so many things. You should know the trigger. So Lambda is very powerful tool nowadays. Lambda is a very powerful tool nowadays.